Hey everybody, I'm Phil, and thanks for riding with me. Well, I am pulling out of my driveway, and I'm going to go for a little ride. You see, I wanted to record a podcast today to get it out as part of the first three to kind of get people adjusted to the concept of what I'm doing. And what you know, that I recorded an amazing podcast, just amazing, on the way home from church. But there was no sound, no audio whatsoever. I don't know what happened, but I can clearly see the meter moving here. I got to honk here real quick to my wife. She's probably wondering where the heck I'm going. But yeah, I told a story of what happened to me and how the Bible is, I think I got a hammer in here. Basically, the Bible's not a hammer, it's a book. And at one point in my life, it was used on me like a hammer. So I wanted to explain what I was talking about. Ooh, look at that squirrel. Well, I guess you guys can't see it, but I see a cool little gray squirrel running around. I like squirrels. I won't break for most animals, but unless there's somebody behind me, I'll break for a squirrel. Okay, so anyway, what I was telling in that story on the way home from church, and now I gotta redo it, which is fine. It's probably gonna come out better. Years ago, 20 years ago, it was in the fall. It'd be 20 years in the fall. I came out of something, and the irony of all of this coming out of it is when it really started. It was exactly, there's a couple of deer getting ready to cross the road. I know I got this pointed at me. You guys aren't going to be able to see them. Very skinny little female and then two little fawns. I don't know if you were able to see them out my back window here, but they're going across the street right now. But anyway, I saw a guy with ZTs on. ZTIT, I think is how you spell it. ZTIT. ZT. And so I asked him, I said, hey, are you Jewish? Because in the book of Numbers somewhere, it says you shall tie a cord of braided blue and white, tie it to to the ends of your garments, so that when you look upon it, that you will remember the commandments of God. What happened was I approached him and said, hey, are you Jewish? And he's like, no, excuse me, I'm Messianic. So what's that mean? He gave me a CD. It was by a couple of guys I'm not going to name, but it basically was something like the Two House Tour or something like that. Didn't know what he meant by Two House Tour. I know now, but I didn't know back then. And but I listened to it. It was a couple hours of teaching, explaining the Hebraic Roots Movement. The Messianic Movement is another name for it, one that's more common. And the way he explained it, he basically was saying Christianity is wrong, and we've been doing it wrong for all these years. And when the Protestants reformed from the Catholic Church, they didn't reform enough. That's basically the gist of what he said. Come up here at the edge of the bike trail. This is a bike trail that I often will ride for riding with Phil. I'm going to give a little pull through this parking lot here so you can maybe perhaps see it when I come around. All right, so I'm on Reservoir Road right now. I think you may have been able to see it when I went by the first time. So anyway, I was intrigued. At that time in my life, I knew something was coming. I knew God had told me. This is before I really understood what it meant to hear God's voice. But I just felt like I was doing something wrong and something different was coming, different understanding. And I really felt like God was trying to tell me that I needed to seek him out for what he's talking about, what's different. And there you go. That got me involved with this guy. And and the two-house movement and the Hebraic Roots Movement, and I went in feet first. I jumped right in. Glad that he didn't dive in. I probably would have broke my neck. Anyway, it was exactly 42 months. It's 3.5 years from the day that I jumped in, said, okay, I'm in. Teach me what you know. Until the day I got out fully was exactly 42 months. Now, I didn't know that. I didn't look at my calendar and say, okay, this is the day that I jumped into it. I got to get out. No, I just wanted out. I got out. It was years later that God had me look and see that it was exactly 42 months. 42 months, exactly. I was in the wilderness. I was, quite honestly, and I know this might offend somebody for me to say this. Oh, no, don't tell me the street's closed up here. I see an orange sign coming up. Utility work ahead. Well, maybe I can get through. I hope I don't get turned around. I'm by the St. Clairsville Reservoir. I don't think they take too kindly to me paddleboarding on that. Anyway, I'm gonna go this way first. Sorry, I'm talking to myself. I'm just trying to decide which way I want to go. I'm gonna go this way first. By the way, I may ride out here someday too. But anyway, it was exactly 42 months. It was, and I'm sorry if I offend a particular person who may be listening, but it was the most miserable time of my life because I was taught that I had to keep the law as best I could. First question I asked, what about, okay, got it. As sacrifices. And the reply I got was, well, haven't you ever had a barbecue? Well, yeah, but I mean, come on, man. You're trying to say that having a barbecue is how you keep the law for a burnt offering? Anyway, I was told basically that there's laws that apply to living in the land and laws that apply to outside of the land. And that has some truth to it. But it was twisted to fit this particular movement that people were trying to get me to join. And it just wasn't fair to twist it the way it was twisted. But God did have commandments for them when they were living in the land and commandments from when they were not in the land, talking about the Israelites. But it was just a manipulation is all it was. Okay, so anyway, what did I do while I was in this two-house movement? Besides lose some friends because I said you must follow the law. And this one person said to me, I'm not building a parapet on top of my house. Well, at that time, I didn't know what the heck that even meant. Well, I looked it up, and sure enough, there's a law that you must build a parapet on the roof of your house. That way, if someone goes on the roof of your house and they fall off, if you have a parapet, it's not your fault. If you don't have one, it's your fault. Their blood's on your hands. And, I really don't even know what the point of that law is, but it's kind of beside the point at the moment. Anyway, I never built a parapet on my house. And I don't have a flat roof anyway, so there's no need for a parapet. And nobody walks on my roof. So anyway, let's get back to it. I tried to keep the law as best I could. There was certain aspects of it. Eating, couldn't eat pork, couldn't eat shellfish, couldn't eat Canadian bacon because that's pork. And I was trying to keep the Sabbath. And again, this was all as best as you can. It wasn't like, hey, you're going to hell if you don't keep these commandments. But it was keep them the best you can. And so I tried to not do work on Saturday, but I wasn't really telling anybody. I would just make up excuses like why I couldn't go somewhere because it was Saturday, things like that. And it was just such a burden. I was not allowed to keep Christmas, Easter, things like that were, what's the word I'm looking for? That were pagan related, okay? You can't be pagan. So I'm going to turn around at this church here. Oh, Spatafor's office too, huh? And the Church of Christ used to be a outdoorsman store. Well, anyway, so Friday night, sundown, to Saturday, sundown, you weren't allowed to do anything. You had to rest. Can't do the holidays. You had to celebrate Passover, including fasting on the days that you were supposed to fast. Not working on the days you were not supposed to work. It included all of those things. Now, I've worked with some Jewish people that have taken those high Sabbaths off. That's fine. I have no problem with that. Nothing against them for that. But, that just wasn't for me. There was more, but there's so much that there wasn't. So the commandments that you are to keep, I'm going to guess less than 50, maybe more, but let's just go with that for now. But then the commandments that you didn't have to keep, let's say they were 50 you had to keep, that left 563 that you did have to keep. You didn't have to keep. So 563 that I didn't have to, but 50 that I did have to. Something just wasn't right about that. But I wasn't giving up. I started considering myself a Messianic Jew, not a Gentile. I was brainwashed. And I believed I was right. And I would have fought with anybody and explained to them why they were wrong and I was right. But part of that is because at that point, I had only read the Bible twice in my life. Now that I've read the Bible a whole lot more, I understand what Paul was saying in that the law was not done away with, but that the law is not what we thought it was. The law was meant to show us our need for a Savior. The law was never intended to save us. In fact, it can't save us. We cannot keep. That was a close one. Somebody came around that corner. Nobody ever drives on this road. Guy's probably thinking, same thing. Nobody drives on this road. He came around that corner so fast, but thankfully I was going slow, or we'd have had a head-on collision. Anyway, I can show you my footage from my dash cam for what happened there. So after this 42 months and losing friends and harming my marriage at the time, and so many things like that were happening, that I finally said, look, I can't do this. And I got to tell you this part first. There's a guy named Tom Detling. I consider him my pastor. He's now 83 years old, maybe 84, something like that. I'm not sure how old Tom is. But I sent him a letter that he never got, and thank goodness he never got it. I told him I was never celebrating Christmas again, that it's a pagan holiday, and that I was in the Messianic Movement, and it's the truth, and he would do well to follow my lead, things like that. It says no boating on the reservoir, so you won't see me out there with the paddleboard. Anyway, he never got it. It's by the grace of God that he never got that email, because I didn't want to harm a relationship with him. And if you happen to be listening to this, that was back in like 2005, 2004, 2005. I don't know when it was, but I'm just so glad you didn't get it. Anyway, I slept in a tent for this Feast of Tabernacles. I was working for a company that had an office in Massillon, Ohio. I went to Massillon. I spent not the entire week, just 3 nights, in a tent, in a campground, miserably cold the entire night. Tried to do a Gideon test with the Lord. I put my flashlight out and I said, Lord, if my flashlight is completely dry and there's dew on the ground, then I know that I'm doing the right thing. The next morning, my flashlight was completely soaked and there was no dew on the ground. Complete opposite of what I asked for. So I did it the following night and I said, okay, now if my flashlight's wet again, but there's no dew on the ground, then I'll know. Yeah, you can probably guess what happened. My flashlight was completely dry and there was a ton of dew on the ground. Complete opposite of what I asked for again. And I was about to do a third one, the third night, and I said, no, this is my last night. I'm not going to put God to the test. And I didn't do it. But then I realized what God was saying to me in that I had everything opposite. And that's the message that I didn't get for several years. way after I was out of the Messianic Movement, I reflected back on that and realized it happened oppositely, because he was trying to tell me I was in opposition to the truth and I wasn't following what he wanted me to do. So I just threw that out there, that I was in opposition to the truth. And I know somebody's probably going to be very upset with me for saying that, because their belief is that you do obey every aspect of the law. For you, maybe so. I know for certain that God calls some people to do that so that they can win Jews over. It's just not me. But I'm saying, if you are in this and you're not certain that it was from God, I would probably ask God, am I really supposed to be doing this? And, change is hard. If you'd been doing it for 10, 15 years, it might be really incredibly difficult to come out of that now. Your salvation does not depend on it. If you believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross, was buried, and rose again on the third day, then you're saved. You don't need anything else. You don't need to not follow the law or follow the law, any of that. You're saved. Plain and simple, you are saved. All right, I'm going to try something here that I don't know if I can do. I'm going to try to take a different route that I just don't know where it's going to lead me. So we'll see. I might get myself lost here. But anyway, so today I told the guy, this is what I'm really trying to get to, and it took me 17 minutes to get here. I told the guy that got me into this, I was in the Maslin office one day, and I said, look, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not buying into this. I am not following this. I'm celebrating Christmas. Christmas 2006 was the best Christmas I had with my kids. Praise God. So I just said, I'm not doing it. Oh, I know where I am. See, I didn't get lost. Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm just kind of looking around here now because I'm at a place that I know, but I've never come from that direction before. Anyway, the guy had me turn to Hebrews chapter 6, verses 4 through 6. And I don't have it handy with me, and I'm driving. I couldn't possibly, tell you what it says right now anyway. But the gist of it is that anyone who turns away, having become enlightened and then turns away, they're going to hell, because you can't crucify Christ again. I was scared to death. I lost my salvation because there was no way I was going back to it. I prayed. I told God, I said, I don't understand this. I said, I'm not buying into this. I don't believe this is true. I said, God, if I'm going to hell, I'm going to hell, but I just don't believe this is the truth. And I was scared for years. Basically, somebody took 3 verses out of the Bible, 4, 5, and 6 of Hebrews chapter 6, took those 3 verses and formed it into a hammer and successfully beat me over the head with it. And I was scared. But if I'd have gone back at that point, it'd have been because of coercion. It's not because it was what I believed. It was all coercion. And that's not the way to win someone's soul over to the Lord. Not at all. But over time, God helped me understand that what I was actually reading there was a hypothetical thing. There's no way someone can do that, because Christ would have to be crucified again. And then he goes on, if you read in context, both back in chapter 5 all the way through chapter 6, verse 4, you read all this, and it says that you can't do that, because you can't crucify Christ again. It's basically saying you can't lose your salvation, not telling you that you can lose your salvation. But when we take it out of context, it says you can lose your salvation. But in the proper context, especially when we get later on, when it says, but we have a greater thing for you. That greater thing for you is that God has sealed you, has protected you, has saved you from yourself. And I think I'm about to pass my wife here. I'm going to stop and talk to her. Hello. I'm talking to myself again. See ya. She laughed at that one. She didn't even say anything. She just thinks it's funny that I either ride my bike or I go out on the paddleboard or I drive in my truck and I talk to myself. And she said, you better not let anybody see you or they'll think you're crazy. Well, that's what I said in the last episode when I was on the bike trail. But anyway, where was I? So basically I thought I was going to hell until I realized what was going on. And it's not about losing your salvation, nor is Hebrews chapter 10, verse 26, nor is Matthew 7:2. None of those verses are talking about anyone losing their salvation, unless you take it completely out of context. And listen, folks, the Bible was not written with chapter and verse. The Bible was written as a whole, and someone added chapters to help navigate. Perfect, wonderful, I'm glad they did. Someone else added verses to help navigate. Perfect, wonderful, glad they did. But what came out of that was this thing called proof texting. Proof texting is when you take these verses completely out of context and you build a doctrine on them. And it's dangerous because in context, we cannot lose our salvation. Christ gave it to us. It's nothing we earned. How could we lose it? You can't sin yourself out of hell, just like you can't work yourself into heaven. So proof texting is taking verses out of context and sometimes stringing them together to build a doctrine that you use to prove, that you put together to prove your doctrine. It's a straw man. It's not something that you should do. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go up. I need my car washed, my truck. I'm going to go through this car wash and we're going to continue talking while I'm in the car wash. I know, probably not something you usually see on a podcast on YouTube, but hey, like I said, unscripted, no agenda, just you, me, and God, and sometimes a guest. And I'm not going to get the super duper one, but I also don't want to get the cheap one. I want to be in here for a few minutes. So,
welcome to our car wash.
Give me a second.
Please select a wash by touching the corresponding button on the screen, or touch the enter code button to enter your code.
Yep, guess what? I don't have my wallet on me. So much for the car wash. Well, here's the car wash. We're driving through it. You can see the different parts of it. I cannot believe I forgot my wallet. Well, I'm just going to pull right up here for a minute. Just for a minute, because I cannot believe I did that. I thought for sure I had it on me, but I did. Yep, I definitely don't have it in my pocket. Wow, that's kind of embarrassing, huh? Hey, unscripted. So anyway, I got out of the Messianic Movement. I'm glad I did. I learned a lot. I learned stuff that I can teach people, because most people that go to Christian churches, they don't know anything about the Jewish history, Israel's history, unless they read the Bible for themselves. And then even then, if you don't really dig into it, you don't get to learn about like what the Civil War meant, why God did it. The phrases like, I came only for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. You know, those are questions that I can answer and help people with now, because I went through this Messianic movement. And I'm grateful that I had that opportunity, but it also, you know, it was difficult. It was very difficult for me. So what do we do? You know, when we look at our past and we say, you know, I don't know why these things happen to me. What's my purpose in all this? We just look to God. That's what I had to do. So anyway, I started out by saying I thought God was telling me something was going to change. That was 2004. It was 2024 when it really started to gel, started to solidify. And even then, it took about a year for me to fully understand what God was trying to say. Honestly, I didn't know the gospel the way it's meant to not be known. I knew of the gospel. I could quote 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4. I could, but I didn't quite really grasp the concept of what the gospel was trying to say. And that's what I've grown into and where I am now. And that the gospel of grace is not just cheap grace. It's not antinomianism, anti-law. It's not licentiousness, you know, just do whatever you want because you're saved. The gospel of grace is a way to explain that And it's not Calvinism either. Let me just throw that out right away. It's definitely not Calvinism. Not even Reformed theology, I would say. It's that Jesus died for us because he had to. He was the only one who could make that sacrifice for us. He's the only one who could, because he was sinless. And there's no part of us that ever could accomplish what he did. And there's nothing in context in the Bible that says that we have to do our part. There are people that teach that, and they're false teachers. I'm not calling them terrible people. You can be a false teacher and be a great person. I was for a long time, because I used to teach this stuff. I was a false teacher. But God changed me and brought me to the truth. And the truth is that it's Jesus plus nothing equals forgiven. Not Jesus plus, okay, this and this and this. And not saved by grace alone, but saved by grace through faith alone, but not a faith that is alone. I used to say that. That's not it either. We are saved by grace alone, through Jesus Christ, through our faith in Jesus Christ. Period. Exclamation point, if you will. Not comma and, or not comma but. It's you're saved by grace, and that's it. And that's why I get really upset with people, and I get pushy on this, because it's a matter of life and death. I mean, stop, Phil. Rephrase that. There are people who are saved, who believe in Jesus Christ as their Savior. They're going to heaven, and they still struggle with, I need to do more. I need to do this. I need to add that. No, you don't need to. We got to take I and we out of the equation, period. Once we do that, we're going to be in much better shape. So I'm going to head back home now. Thank you for riding with me. I've got a couple people lined up to ride with me in the truck. I've got a person lined up to ride with me on the bike, possibly two. I'm waiting on the reply from the one. And I got people lined up to ride with my son riding in a kayak while I ride on the paddleboard. But hey, we'll see how this podcast goes. You know, it might end up being 5-6 episodes. It might end up being 500 episodes. I don't know yet. I never know when I start one of these things. I just know that I'm following the Lord's lead, and that's all I can do. It is hot today. 85 degrees right now, sunny. It's a beautiful day. Beautiful, beautiful day. Well, I hope you enjoyed this ride. And, pay attention, Phil. Don't look at the beautiful sunny trees and birds in the air. Pay attention, you're still driving a car. All right, so I'm turning here. And I just want to say, until we talk again, remember, go with the Lord wherever you go. He's always with you. You can't go wrong. Even if you go wrong, it's not wrong, because God is with you through it all, every single time. God is good. God is love. God is amazing. And God loves you eternally. And there's nothing you can do to make him mad unless what you do is not believe in him. John 3:16-18. Not taken out of context. All right, then, I'm going to go around this corner and continue to enjoy this beautiful day. We live in a crazy time. Technology booming. People coming out of the woodwork trying to be teachers and unfortunately misleading some. Seek God. He has the truth. He is the truth.